and we'll get
Are you
into it.
upset about the Eagles scenario?
So there's a few things. I mean, for New
Yeah.
York today, yeah, it was the Saquon thing, which we'll get into. Saquon to the Eagles is like honestly a dagger to the heart. It couldn't have been a worse team. Like honestly, I think
Right.
like it's between the Eagles and the Cowboys as being the two worst teams that he could have potentially gone to as a fan. And I think the Eagles are the worst of that two evils because it's like the Cowboys, I have no doubt in the end will look down at their jerseys and choke in the playoffs. But the
Right.
Eagles, that offense didn't need to get more dangerous despite their terrible end of the season last year. So
Fair.
I was talking to my Giants friends, and this has been a huge conversation for the entire offseason. Are we going to get him? Are we not? Where's he going to go? And out of nowhere today, like the talk has been Houston. And then I woke up this morning and I think that actually the Bears were the top betting odds. They were plus 200 that he was going to go there. And at no point were the Eagles or Dallas really put into the conversation. Maybe Dallas because we knew they needed a running back, but they've been more attached to Derrick Henry. And then I'm no joke. I mean, straight Italian style. The baby was finally down taking a nap, and I'm making chicken cutlets, and my G-Men thread is going off, and all of a sudden because I got the laptop in the back, right? And all of a sudden
Right.
I hear that it's Saquon to the Eagles, and I literally stopped. I stopped making the cutlets, and I turned and I had to watch to see if this was real, and it was real. And when I tell you, now the Giants stink. All right. I'm not living in ignorance here. I'm well aware that my team overachieved 2 seasons ago by getting into the playoffs and beating Minnesota in the playoffs. But that was enough for me. That was a little bit of hope. And Saquon, it was really he's anyone who asks 2 seasons in a row or states that they want to be a Giant till they retire, for me, that holds a lot of credence. That's something special and someone that you want to hang on to. And
Right.
I had come to terms with him potentially leaving. Like, that's okay. I want what's best for him. But for him to go to Philly, I mean,
Right. But
that's like it's like your wife leaving you for I don't even know who, like, it's just the worst person in the world, the person that you hate the most. It hurt. It hurt so bad. I was
right.
just, and then I heard earlier that Garrett Cole had is getting an MRI on his shoulder because he's had a tough spring training, I guess. I'm not even tuned into baseball yet, but to just hear that come across, I'm like, what this is, I mean, not since
So
the
did you
stock
the
market
chicken
crash.
cutlets? They burned for sure. You
There was one that was a little overdone. I mean,
okay?
I am an Italian. You can smell it, right? You can
Yeah.
smell it. So
You
I'm not going to let the chicken cutlets die along with my football team. I'm going to at
yeah. Then
least
you would have
save the
been three
chicken
and
cutlets
out. You had
for my own self-preservation, for my own self-soothing once it really sank in.
I
And
mean,
I just seeing him in that Eagles green. Uh,
I know it's not on necessarily topic today, but it's a big deal. But I'll bring up and I'll just say this seems to be part of a bigger discussion, Tommy, because in the last 20 years of sports, when you get the elites of these athletes and they don't end up staying on teams forever like maybe they used to. You look at basketball, football, the Michael Jordans, right? They're there. They deliver these performances and they bring teams to the dynasty movement. You get these guys now that they'll go to the team where they're going to win. CMC, they want to go in the best possible place from where they're the best player in the worst circumstances to be put in the best circumstances. And so I think you see that transpire in a place where now he's now in a place where maybe he's going to have a chance or the best chance because their careers aren't forever either. So I think as much as a fan, now if he came to the Bears, I would say this is amazing, but that's not the case. But I would hate to see if that player was on the Bears and they lost that'd even be worse. So I feel your pain, but I think this is just the standard of what today's day is in sports, right? But again, we may agree there, but that's a whole nother topic.
I do agree. I know I completely agree. And the topic for this podcast was supposed to be college basketball, college conference
Yes.
tournament, maybe a little
We're in
sneak
March.
into March Madness. And then all I heard was what's his face from WWE, Jim Ross. I heard
Yeah.
Jim Ross go, "That's the NFL's music." And then they just come storming out, stealing all the headlines today. And I'm like, we got to write this whole rundown, dude. We can't do a sports podcast and not talk about everything that happened today. So we will get to college basketball. We will absolutely talk about the conference tournaments. I know you and I disagree about one big thing there, which we will. Don't jump into it yet. We'll get there. We'll get there. But we had to touch on NFL because today was like, and we've kind of been waiting for it, right? Like we needed that one domino to fall, and then everything else is going to kind of fall into place. And it really seemed like it went that way. Now, whether it was Chicago signed Swift today from Philly, right?
Right.
So that takes, so Swift goes to the Bears. That's the first domino. Now, Philly needs someone. They signed Saquon. So Saquon's there. Derrick Henry still, as of now, I believe, hasn't signed with the team. But Baltimore, and I swear to God, if he goes to Dallas, you may.
You have Henry going to Dallas? Is that what you're thinking is going to happen?
Dallas has been a top connect with him since the beginning. It does seem like maybe the Ravens have taken over that top spot in the interest, according to, all the experts on TV. If he goes to Baltimore, I may buy a Derrick Henry jersey. I mean, that's just sick. But if he goes to Dallas, I will physically be sick because we will be so far down on the NFC East totem pole that we've got no shot, especially with the Commanders set up to take a top 3 quarterback this year, which we desperately need. So it was a rough one. The chicken cutlets came out good, but I'm
just glad the chicken cutlets came out okay, because if any other news came through, I mean, I don't know what else you needed to hear, but that's
the only thing I need is that the MRI comes back negative for Cole.
Oh.
Please, God, don't take my Yankees away from me now.
Yeah, that'd be the icing on the cake. That'd be terrible.
Knicks are solid, though. Knicks are looking, although Brunson got the injury. It's been a bad week or two for New York. We'll be all right.
Yeah.
We'll get there.
You always are. You guys have too much history and things always work out. For a Chicago guy like me, let's not even go there because I'm not hopeful that anything's working out in any sport in the next X years. I can't even say how long, and I don't want to wish that upon us, but it's not feeling great. I do think football maybe is the soonest to come back.
Yeah. Now, do you like that with Caleb Williams? Hey, let me bring us in. And then we'll jump right into it because we've already got a bunch of good stuff already going. Thanks everyone for tuning in. Welcome to the BettorOff Podcast. We've got myself, Tommy Props here, along with my man Chris Chi-Town Martin coming in for a little insight into what was going to be just college basketball, but now we've got to hit NFL as well because today, Monday, March 11th, was a wild day in NFL free agency. And we'd be a terrible sports podcast if we didn't talk about it a little bit. But Chris, thanks for joining us today. Our CEO, the boss man himself, Alex Dubin, may tune in a little bit, but I think it might just be you and I riding dolo this ep. So I'm excited to have you here, excited to catch up. Hope things are all right out there in LA. Chi-Town guy, living West Coast lifestyle. Can't say that I'm not jealous, as it was a freezing and windy day over here in Brooklyn for me.
Well, I'll correct you. I'm in South Orange County, not LA County. I can't associate with LA County around here, but no, nothing wrong with LA. But I'm happy to be here and excited to get to join up to talk some sports with you, Tommy.
All right. Let's get into some of the stuff that's going on in the NFL today. Again, we don't have to spend too much time on it. We already talked about some of the running backs. The big question was the QB carousel that was going on. And the first thing that I woke up to this morning, Russell Wilson to Pittsburgh. Got there cheap.
I saw that.
1.2 million for Pittsburgh to have a Super Bowl winning quarterback, at one time surefire Hall of Fame quarterback. That's now, up in the air a little bit. But for 1.2 mil, it's worth it, right?
Is he going to have his own office and bring the family on to the facility and do that whole thing, or is he gonna be a real quarterback there?
I mean, that's the question. I think after the backlash that it got at Denver, I would imagine that he would tone it back a little bit. Maybe he doesn't need his own office. I mean, he's got to fight for a starting job right now, so I don't think that warrants your own office. I also think that Mike Tomlin is someone who can come in and just be like, Russ, you ain't getting that, dude. I need you part of this team.
You
And
might
just
have
get
that.
shades
That
on the
might be
whole
word for
time.
word right there. He might scare him back a little bit and give him a little bit of the real deal. I don't know. Maybe he felt like he owned things a little different at Broncos, but yeah, I don't know. I'm with you there though. I think he now feels like he has to earn something back than where it maybe was at from a different place. A little humbling experience per se. But let's see if that holds up.
Yeah, definitely a humbling experience. It'll be interesting to watch that battle, right? Because it's him and Kenny Pickett going for the starting job. I don't think that he's a shoe-in starter. I think they brought him to potentially just light a fire under Pickett and see if Kenny Pickett can be the guy. And if he's not the guy, then they'll ride Russ for a few years, knowing that they've got to draft a QB in a future draft or trade for someone younger once Russ gets towards the tail end. But yeah, it's interesting, for 1.2 mil, it's well worth the roll of the dice.
Yeah, you compare that to Cousins and what they're spending on over there. I mean,
ooh, Cousins to Atlanta. All the
mean,
talk today was that Atlanta is now the favorite to win that division.
I mean, tell me that though. Was that worth? I'm going to throw this out there because I don't even know if I'm right. Was it 90 guaranteed, 180 contract? I mean,
Something
is
like
that
that.
where we're
Yeah.
at these days, even in the NFL now? I mean,
I just didn't realize
that's a big number, but
I knew he was a good quarterback. I didn't realize the way that again, I'm gonna say experts with a little bit of air quotes over it because just like Jim Cramer, they're all kind of full of shit. Instantly, they were all like, Kirk Cousins is a top quarterback, and immediately changes Atlanta. And I'm sitting there going, I think he's got one playoff win under his belt, right? Like
Saints in like I don't remember.
I know my Giants beat him last year, right?
Yeah.
Like he's not.
Who did he used to have? He was throwing to Diggs. Who was his guy?
Diggs. I mean Jefferson. You got Jefferson out
now, but back when he, I mean, and how many? Now would you call him? He's in his prime right now. Is that if you looked at his career, would this be the peak? And they're going to ride that? And I mean, you compare that to
they have to. They're committed. They're committed. Now they needed someone. They needed someone for sure, and they are built to win right now. If all they needed was a quarterback, that seemed to be the missing piece from them. We'll see how it goes. I was never that sold on Kirk Cousins. I never, and maybe this is just because he's kind of like that corny white dad dude, in the league with that everyone else is like, throw chains on him. Like, that's funny because it's like in an ironic way.
Right.
I never was afraid of him. If we were going up against Minnesota, it's not that I was worried about Kirk Cousins, right? Like he was always someone who's hitting those 5-10 yard passes, but not a killer, not someone who's going to step on your throat. And so,
right.
Best of luck to Atlanta.
Maybe it's game management and their running game seems to be established now. So maybe they see what he can bring from a passing component and it's just going to tie in well. But I'm with you. I think I don't know. Well, that's one of them that's going to be out there to be seen. That's going to be, I'm with you on that. I can't say anything bad either though, at the same time. I don't think I could say just to like what you're saying on, hey, I'm not expecting I'm not fearful in the fourth quarter with someone like Cousins and maybe his history. There's also something to be written. Maybe we'll change that. Maybe there's a optimistic side of the things he can do there. And maybe he's going to pull out his best football yet to come. So we'll see. I don't know. I won't take either side yet. We'll see.
Yeah. Got to let it play out. That's a lot of maybes though. It's a lot of maybes.
That is a lot of maybes.
A lot of maybes.
I don't feel that great about it.
last QB domino to really fall here is Fields. Now it seems pretty locked in that your Bears are going to take Caleb Williams with the top spot. Prior to this, what seems like a guarantee, I'm curious as a fan where you were. Were you in that Fields category? Everyone seems to moved on. They promote Fields nonstop as someone who's quality, but it seems like people have stopped pressuring the Bears to keep him. And I'm curious where you stood before and where you are now.
Tommy, it's like the QB carousel at the Bears since 1985, probably. I mean,
Yeah.
and I've dealt with all of it from the Kyle Orton years to Jim Miller and Rex Grossman. I mean, I could count on more fingers and toes how many quarterbacks have been through there. And I say that because I think this is another scenario of let's just pull the next guy in and it's just going to happen. And unfortunately, and I won't, we don't, it's a podcast for probably a whole another podcast just on this. As you imagine, we could do it for New York teams too. There are other things I think that need to be fixed in so many other areas. And I think the quarterback at any team in the National Football League is the glaring, like, that's the fix. If we fix that, and I get it. In some cases, you get Patrick Mahomes in there. Okay.
Yeah.
You know what? That might change the game. But I think Fields is great. And I think if we lean in and fix other areas, again, that's a whole discussion to have. I think that we could lean in, and I'm pro Fields and I'm pro sticking it out and seeing this thing through.
All right.
I think the jury's, everyone else is going the other direction. All that, let's just get and I guarantee we have the same conversation in another 2 years. There's another guy coming in and let's see how that plays out. And I'll leave it there. That I think there's other things that need to be addressed. So I'm with Fields.
That's fair. That's fair. There is something to be said. Again, I didn't see, I'm not a pro scout by any means, hand up, right? But didn't love Caleb Williams' body language in the couple of games that I watched this year. Don't love him on the sidelines with the towel over his head. Would have liked to have seen USC do more just in general, right? Like if you're that elite, they should have been in the national conversation way more than they were. I think the money comes into it. That's huge now, right? In the NFL, getting someone who's potential franchise talent on a rookie contract is massive. And I think Fields has 2 years left on his contract, and then he's off his rookie contract. So maybe the money came into it a little bit. I hate when these guys talk about that, again, your comparison. It's not even your comparison, it's their comparison. They compare him to Patrick Mahomes. They've already written him in as one of the best all time. And until you get in there and do it,
how many
jury's out.
Guys could you name that's been the story of, oh, this is the next so-and-so, and then they don't even do anything. And I mean, more than ever in the last 10 years, there's probably a laundry list of quarterbacks that never did anything. And they were out of the league faster than, you tell me like the Vince Youngs and those guys, I know this a long time ago, but you look at these guys that come in and you're like, this is going to be the best guy in the next 20 years. And then it's like, wait, what, who, where was that person? I'm not saying, hey, I hope that's not the case for Chicago, but it could be. And I think we
look at it
gotta stick it out.
In the reverse way, right? It's not like Patrick Mahomes came out of college as the #1 draft pick and everyone was like, this guy will be the next whoever, right? Like Mahomes turned into Patrick Mahomes. You got to let that happen. Until it does, these young guys, it's a crapshoot no matter what, no matter where you go in the draft, no matter what your pedigree, you're a crapshoot and the game speeds up once you get into the pros. With that said, honestly, I'm kind of rooting for you. I hope the Bears do well with whatever route they go. It seems like they're going the Caleb Williams route, though.
I think that's our next. I think Chicago's going to ride that. I think we're close. We've been rebuilding for how many years? I don't know, but I think there's something there.
How many lifetimes?
Yeah, more than mine. So.
Hey, they'll sell a ton of jerseys. Everyone who bought a Fields jersey is going to have to toss that away and then go get themselves a Caleb Williams jersey. So,
hey, yeah, you said it best, man. There's money involved, right? So
always
I have a lot of the decisions.
Always, it's a business. A couple other things going on today in free agency, and I'm sure I'll miss a couple, but we can just touch on them quick. Gabe Davis out of Buffalo, down to warmer weather, going to Jacksonville and the Jaguars. Don't hate it. Wish the best for him. I'm a pro Josh Allen guy. Love Josh Allen. I think that Buffalo is kind of America's sweetheart right now. Like, I know Dallas likes to pin themselves as America's team. I don't think that's true anymore. Maybe it was in the 90s when they were winning. But I think people love to root against Dallas at this point. And the world loves the people of Buffalo because they're crazy. They're just crazy mofos up there.
They jump on flaming tables and even Kelsey got in there and he was a fan favorite and couldn't
That was an
could
awesome
not want to
clip,
love those
wasn't it?
fans. I think he was almost rooting for them in that game. I have to say, I think it might have been the case. So that was enough for me to see how I would root for them if I was there. I'd have to.
NFL's got to give him some sort of TV contract where he just goes to like almost like a college game day, right? Like
That would be amazing.
Jason Kelsey tailgate where he just goes each week to a different big matchup and parties
Right.
it up with the locals and just bees himself. Because if anyone has come out, it's funny because it was all about Travis and Taylor, but I think Jason is the winner of it
Yeah.
all. I think he came out far and above. His fame has reached new heights
You know
since
why?
all of it went down.
He's a man of the people.
Man of the
He
people.
came out and everyone the Travis Taylor thing was just headlines and fans, but the it's a whole different thing when you're there for the people and you're lifting up kids and doing that whole thing, whatever he was doing there. I don't know, but you're right. The Dallas Cowboys are not. I don't know why they keep that slogan going, but to me,
Money,
that's
back to
so
the business side of
outdated.
it.
Yeah, the Bills are, at least for me as a fan too. I don't know, maybe 10 years ago I didn't care nonetheless, but now I agree. I'm rooting for them when they're in there. If the Bears are out, I'm saying, hey, and I like Allen too for that matter. So yeah, I'm
Yeah.
with you on that.
Josh Allen's one of those I'll reach as much as I can in fantasy to get him on my team each and every year,
Oh,
just so I have an excuse to like be a Buffalo fan for the season instead of just
right.
being a poser for another New York team.
There, there's just people though that are exciting to watch, right? Like
Yeah.
my wife doesn't watch as much football, but when I say you got to watch this guy, and then the next play is, oh wow, that guy's you can't say that about a lot of players. Maybe Mahomes is in that conversation. You got a
Yeah.
couple players that you say, watch this guy, and it's just fun. And I think people gravitate towards wanting to watch athletes that are fun to watch, that is not just like talk about the inspire and all that, but that are just that's what the whole thing's about. Crazy plays,
The
stuff you don't see
gamer,
all the time. You don't want to just go watch a couple little short, passes and slants. You want to see some
Kirk
stuff.
Cousins.
Yeah, there you go. You want to watch five missed tackles, some spin arounds, a little underhand magic, and that I think that's what you get with Allen to a degree. I think people like that. It's the bigger than life effect, and that's
Yeah, he's not afraid to go up and over someone. And you know what? He's got a little bit of gamesmanship in him too. He'll talk some trash and he'll let the opposing fans know that he's there and he's there to win. And he's similar to Mahomes in the sense that he knows what his team needs in the moment and he's not afraid to go and give it to him, right? Like he'll lower his shoulder to get that last yard, 2 yards, and keep that drive alive with that first down conversion. So I'm hoping that he gets one somewhere along the road. It does feel like Mahomes is going to change legacies just because he's in that conference, in that division. There are a bunch of good quarterbacks in the AFC who you would imagine in another generation, another time, you'd almost shoe in to be in the Super Bowl at some point, win a Super Bowl at some point. And the Mahomes hurdle is just so high for these guys that Mahomes is a straight up legacy changer. There's going to be a bunch of guys from this time in the NFL who don't have a Super Bowl ring or even a Super Bowl appearance on their resume when it comes to their Hall of Fame voting. And it will be because Patrick Mahomes is that good. And that's enough sucking of Patrick Mahomes for today. But it is
no
truly
comment.
the impact that he's having on the history of the game is can't not be said.
Right. I'm with you. I'll leave that comment at this. The only thing that's interesting to me is most of the time, anybody, no matter what year they're in, even if they've been in the NFL for like 3 years, quarterback wins, and there's a question: Are they returning? Will they come back? And Mahomes, I think you could hear him on the stand taking the trophy, saying, "We're gonna get a three-peat. You've already won three." And now you're just saying right now there's not even leaving it to guess. It's like Michael Jordan coming back for the three-peat. He's coming back.
Yeah.
I think there's a lot to be said for that because that can only is not, and I'm not a football NFL player. I don't know what they go through year in and year out and how grueling it is. So to just sign up, we're just going to do it again with the confidence he has. That's something you don't see that. A lot of guys start talking about that. The retirement maybe sounds about good. I got the victory. We're at the top of the peak. Let's just ride it out. And here this guy's coming back again. Wow. So
Yeah,
yeah,
he's
and
young too, man. I mean,
yeah,
he's young and um oh, I lost my train of thought.
you're in
It was because
you're starting to think
this.
basketball now.
We've got it. We'll get into basketball. It's next on my rundown sheet. Last thing I'll say about Mahomes, it's him, and I think Travis also had this sentiment that this was sweeter than all the rest because they had such an off year. They had a case of the drops during the regular season. Um, we don't like to bring it back up on here, but I did vote against or bet against Patrick Mahomes every week in the playoffs. Now, am I responsible? Is my mush responsible for the Kansas City Chiefs Super Bowl? Maybe. Maybe. Had I switched my bet in the Super Bowl, would they not have been victorious? Possibly. Do I believe in that? Yeah, a little bit. Superstitious. Baseball player growing up, so superstitions there. But this
Bring me
one
back
was
to
the sweetest for them.
I I want to come. I'm going to go into something deep here because as I'm thinking, you play golf. We play golf together, actually.
Oh yeah.
When I'm having a great front nine, think of having a good first half of the season in football or in basketball. This is why I want to come full circle into what our discussion on the postseason. And I'll bring this to there when we get there. I'll bring you back to this point. If I'm playing the front nine and I have a great front nine, I'm nervous on the back nine because I don't want to F it up.
Right.
If I have a so front nine, but I'm still in contention for a good score, I'm not talking we're like 0-10 record. I'm saying we got a chance. That back nine, it is the most worth it when you get that low score and you come back and you achieve a great score. You win if it's a tournament you're in or whatever it is for betting rights.
Absolutely.
That's a different back nine, and you're hungry and it's exciting, and you finish that and it's the most exciting one versus, oh yeah, this great front nine, you kind of protected it and you played okay and you got pars on the way out and you were whole that. And I'll come back to that why, because I think that momentum is really important to have, and I think they had that, and I think they rode that, and they grinded it out for that, and I think it was worth it. So you could probably agree. I mean, you've played, right? You know that
Oh
feeling
yeah, 100%. No,
versus going for it.
listen, in the end, it's all about how you finish, right? And
Right.
you talk about what you have to do is get to the playoffs. And this
Yeah.
this road for them was tough to start, but they got to the playoffs, and now it's different than every other year, right? Again, not our Super Bowl recap show, but we'll touch on it. They had to go on the road. No one can poo-poo anything that they did this year because it was a no-joke road to the Super Bowl, and they went and handled business.
Right.
Credit to them. Let's move on from the Chiefs, and I'll just touch. Running back market today was crazy. We were talking about it before we brought everyone in. Saquon to Philly, dagger to the heart. Josh Jacobs to Green Bay, and Henry is off to maybe Baltimore, maybe Dallas. He's kind of the last big head that we'll see. And you're either taking a long sip of that water or you're frozen.
Yeah.
Let's jump into these tournaments. So, I mean, it's been kind of it's been exciting for us. You and I happen to be Purdue and UConn fans, right? And for that reason, college basketball season has been awesome this season. Now, there's been a lack of blue bloods towards the top, which I think when in the national perspective, people might be looking at this season as a bit of not a flop, but just kind of dull, maybe. It seems like there's been three guys towards the top the entire time, right? It's been Houston, Purdue, and UConn kind of jostling those top three positions. And then you have a weekend like this past weekend where I think you had Tennessee at 4, Arizona at 5, and Iowa State at 6. And then all three of those teams lose. So UNC jumps from 7 to 4. It's been a rotating carousel for everyone else deeper down. But it's been those three programs in the top 3 spots. And we're getting into conference tournament time now. And I know you and I have differing agreements or differing opinions on the conference tournament. Me, Big East faithful. The Big East title, while it doesn't hold the same overall value as a national championship, it is a banner worthy, bragging rights worthy championship to hold. And I hold the Big East near and dear to my heart. And I love conference tournament time. It's my favorite week of the year in regards to basketball. But share your opinion, Mr. Chi-Town over there.
Hey, I'm in SoCal now. Come on now. No, I'm gonna give I mean, maybe I'm not alone. And there's others out there that might be watching this, nodding, saying I'm with you. But I'm gonna do the unpopular opinion of saying that the conference tournaments, I didn't always believe this, but I do now in the last couple of years. I think it's a waste of time. I think the regular season conference champs by record title outright, even if it's shared title, I don't even care then. Now, again, that's really unpopular opinion, but it does need to be decided. Everyone cares about who wins in March. You should know from last year. That counts
Reigning
more.
national champs.
Like that's it. And how many times all right, I can say this as a Purdue fan. I'll say why. Purdue has the most Big Ten championships I think it's 26 in the Big Ten. They have never won an NCAA in the modern, I don't even think before the modern, now it's gone to 68 teams technically. I don't think they've won one. And the last couple of years they've been out in the 64. So I didn't talk about last year. If you bring it up, my internet will have issues again. But let's just break this down. The conference tournament, now Purdue's regular season Big Ten. I'm good with that. Now there's others who aren't, and their teams are in the Big Ten that didn't win it. And they're okay. We want a chance to get, how about this? We want a chance to get in the big dance. We want to be in the tournament. We're not quite there. We're going to use the conference tournament. I get it. There's a place for teams that need that. But if you're the team that's, let's say, it's like in football, I hate to compare the two, but if you're trying to go for the Super Bowl, imagine playing a playoff series for your conference. And instead of sitting players out, you got to go win those. You want that trophy. And then you go after the Super Bowl after that. People would be like, no way. We're going to injure, where our best players could get injured. This is a total waste of time. Let's just end the season, have a great season. You made it to the NCAA tournament, and let the madness begin and go at it. Like use that momentum and drive. And then if you get the injuries and things, at least you were going for the title, not your conference title. But again, I'm heated on that because here we go into and we'll get into those decisions on what we think is going to happen. I've got some good ones for you, but I'm going to watch Purdue go into that thinking, I really don't care if they win the Big Ten title this year. They need to redeem themselves in the tournament. All I want to do is get there. This could be a biased opinion because I'm a Purdue fan. I'll come out and say that on here.
You should.
Tell me how, hearing that, do you have a side of yourself that maybe could agree a little bit, or are you totally like, that's the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard in college basketball talk?
Well, can remind me, what did Purdue do in their conference tournament last year?
Purdue won last year, but
Purdue won the Big Ten conference.
They won the conference outright and they beat Penn State, and it was a close, like we were talking at the last seconds, they almost lost. And FDU, Fairleigh Dickinson, I mean, everybody knows that name now. They saw that. And that, again, here, if that didn't happen, I'm going to do all the like this butterfly effect or something. They saw that game and said, these guys are trash. They're going to be beaten. And what did they go and do? They beat us because we looked like idiots in the Big Ten championship. And what did we have from last year? Did anyone go back and say, oh, wait, Purdue was Big Ten champions? No, they said,
no, you don't get any credit. Right.
No, they said Purdue lost in the 64, and that's all that ever mattered. So maybe this is, as I'm talking to you about it, I'm seeing through maybe a little bit of the redemption is going to come in the madness, and you hate to see teams give it all on the line for a conference championship that I don't think carries its weight when you talk about historical teams. And you go look at, now you guys had last year and you say, okay, well then it doesn't really matter after you go and win the championship, everything's okay. So unless we do what Virginia did a couple of years ago, losing and then winning, I don't think you can erase losing to a 16. It's only happened once other time, and that the team redeemed themselves. We can't redeem ourselves by winning a Big Ten championship. And no matter how many times, you win it 40 times. No one's ever going to care. Again, unpopular opinion.
I agree with you on that. I agree with you on that. No one cares that Purdue won the Big Ten last year. Everyone remembers the FDU loss. I don't know if, I'm sure you remember, we happened to be out west, I think a week or two later, and we had a lunch. We were going out with the family to lunch, and you were late showing up to that lunch, and I brought it up. And
Yeah.
your wife, my cousin, she was, don't bring it up. Don't bring it
Yeah.
up. Once he gets here, please,
Oh,
please don't bring it. It'll just send the entire lunch into a bit of a tailspin. And
no.
I get it. Now that I didn't think about the fact that there's no redemption, right? There's no you winning the Big Ten, you winning the regular season title, that there's no redemption in that. No one can say, after losing to FDU, like, yeah, but we won the Big Ten. Like, that's absolutely not. No one cares. No one cares.
Oh,
Um,
yeah.
now, in the moment, and maybe that's where we need to where my head is, right, as a fan, as someone who loves yelling at a television, whether I'm out inside my own apartment, in a foreign land, sitting there watching somewhere. I love yelling at a TV. And the Big East for me is just some of the best competition that you can have. So it's a week-long rivalry week where if you come out on top, you got a little bit of grit, right? That's a flex that you can have on everyone in your conference for the next year. I think this is the first year that UConn won the regular season title since 1999.
I didn't know that. Okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
Last year we didn't win either, and credit to Dan Hurley. I love Dan Hurley. People hate him. I love having a coach that everyone hates. Um, he's used that. He used that as motivation this year, and it's very much a thorn in their side that the national championship was great. But he even said this in a presser a few weeks ago. I forget which game it was after, but that the fact that they had not won the regular season last year and didn't win the tournament was a thorn in their side. So using that as motivation for this year is, credit to them for rising to that occasion and doing it. Now, do you hang a banner for a regular season Big East champion? No. Do you hang a banner for the Big East tournament? Yeah. And I think that's well worth it. Also, as someone who's been to the Garden to watch these games, it's
Right.
awesome, dude. It's electric. It is just, it'll be, other than the two first days of March Madness, where it's just basketball on basketball on basketball.
Oh,
For
the best.
me, as a fan, as a viewer, it's the best time to tune in to college hoops.
Well, we should get someone's got to have the data. There's got to be an analyst on your side that can figure this
I
out.
got to get my own Jake Marsh.
Yeah, we should do mark my words out, or let's rewind to this at some point, because let's see how you now. I hope UConn does well. I really do, because there's a few teams I'm rooting for in this, so I won't talk trash on UConn by saying this. But if that's what the coach feels, let's see them win. They already won the regular season. Let's see them win this tournament. And then let's see if the thorn in their side is gone. And let's see, maybe they don't even make the Sweet 16 because they sort of lost we put everything in and all the the mojo into the tournament. And then the NCAA comes and all of a sudden, maybe not 16, but maybe they go to the 8 and it just sort of falls off because it's just too much. Now I'm going to say, let's rewind and look at, what do all the stats show? Let's see all the years maybe Purdue, for example, didn't win the Big Ten tournament, and they made, like, there's not that many of them, so there's probably like two, but they made the Elite Eight, right? Let's see, what happened that season. Now, last year they won both and they were out in the first round. This year, I'm a little nervous I'll tell you my predictions, but if they win the Big Ten title again, I'm kind of like, this is the same recipe as last year. They're kind of going into it like my front nine of golf we talked about in our other cast on football. They're going in with something to lose. I like when they go in with something to gain, like, oh man, we lost, we're hungry, we're angry. Let's go after it. I don't know. So
I can
maybe I'll
see that. I think that's a little bit of PTSD coming back and changing your mindset.
Yeah,
I love
yeah.
the idea of collecting trophies, right? So
Yeah.
this goes back to UConn last year, when they, the Maui Invitational in the beginning of the year. We want that trophy.
Yeah.
We want the regular season, because in the end, the regular season title is nothing but a big round robin tournament. And if you choose to look at it that way, then great. And I think that there's something to be said about having that winner's mentality and always chasing that next trophy, not getting caught looking ahead to the national championship, not getting caught looking ahead to the Big East tournament, but focus on the job at hand. And that for up until last week, 2 weeks ago, was getting for us, the regular season. And now we're on to the Big East tournament. We want to win this Big East tournament. Now, what I'll say as reigning national champs and someone who I would rather a national championship. I think you'd be a fool to not rather a national championship compared to your conference championship. So I've got my eyes set on the national championship. If we lose in this tournament, I'm not going to be upset. It's not going to be a, shit hits the fan type situation. Fine, more rest. We can use that as motivation going into your point, right?
Right.
But there is something to be said about winning mentality and knowing how to win some tight games, right? And you look at the Kemba Walker year where he crossed up Pitt, and then I forget who they beat in the finals that year. But like knowing that you can win these tight games, I think is key. And I've seen it time and time again this season with UConn where they get down early and they take advantage of teams. This last Providence game was a huge example where Providence got off to a hot start senior night, and we're down 13 at one point. You can't leave us in the game, dude. With our coaching, with our players, it's a brand new UConn team. We've got it's not the same guys as last year, and they're just as hungry to make their own history, to forge their own legacy. But I hear you. As a fan, I want that. Give me Creighton. Give me a tight game, a game that I go into sweating a little bit, right? A game that I'm so nervous. I'm not that nervous about playing someone in a different conference, but these like if we have to face Marquette for a third time with I forget their point guard's name, with him back healthy, I'm going to be sweating going into that game.
Yeah.
It's just it's tough basketball. And I think as a consumer, that's what you want. But again, back to the business side of things. I mean, everyone's winning in that aspect.
Right. Well, and yeah, I think we'll see how it plays out this year. And maybe my sort of fear-based mentality of a win, because no one's going to go into a game and try and lose, right? So they're going to give it their all. They're going to risk the injuries. They're going to, not that we see as many in basketball as you may in other sports. So some could be wrong there, but in some case you're safe to play some of these games. But yeah, we'll see how it turns out, and then maybe I'll come back. Like I said, we'll come back around after everything plays out. Maybe I'll say something different and say, you know what, maybe I changed my opinion based off the way things played out. But I'm still going to stand behind the focus on the tournament, whatever's going to keep the teams like healthy, rested, and going into that Thursday. I can't see another 16 seed overtake. Well, that is if we even get a 1 seed. There's a lot to play.
I think you should be a lock in for the 1 seed. I think us, UConn and Purdue and Houston should both be locks for 1 seeds. And that makes sense coming off the year that you had last year, man. I get it, right? You did it. It doesn't, what you do in the regular season and in your conference tournament very clearly means absolutely nothing come the March Madness tournament. And no one's buying Big Ten championship hats. You want the Natty championship or nothing. You're either the last man standing or you're a loser. And I get that. Let's hope that you put in a little bit more of a fight this March so that we can have a more civil lunch next time.
There you go. And I hope
tell me about the Big Ten tournament. So they're Purdue's number 1. I guess technically, can you look at it as a 2-day bye because of how many teams you have? I know I'm looking at the bracket right now.
There's a first and a second, and then Purdue and the other. There's 3 other. There's top 4 seeds are in the quarter, which would be Friday morning. I think it starts.
So you need 1, 2, 3, just 3 wins to take down the tournament. Is that right?
Yep, 3 wins. I had the bracket pulled up and I took a glance and I've watched the Big Ten. I mean, I've watched it all season, and Purdue's probably, I'm an avid Purdue fan, but I think we've played everybody at least once as you go through. Obviously others you're playing twice. I think for those out there who are looking at this, and whether you're a Big Ten fan or not, I know there's so many, different conferences. It's hard to keep up sometimes. The Big Ten's a more watched occasion. I know there's a lot of folks that are into it. I'm looking, you got Illinois has been there all season.
That's the
Purdue's
number 2.
obviously the top favorite in the country. Having watched Purdue play and struggle against, they have 3 losses. So you're going to look, were they all conference? Yes. And who were they? Northwestern, Nebraska, and Ohio State. And when you look at those, you look at the stats. Now, Purdue had a lot of turnovers when they lost those games, but if I looked at the 3 of them, I go, okay, Nebraska, Tominaga, I think is his name. He was hot on threes. If that guy gets hot on threes, you can look. I'm looking at Nebraska's already in their quarters, but look to see them possibly go to the final. It's possible. If they get hot on threes, they're hard to beat. Look, Purdue lost to them, and Purdue isn't losing to many people.
Right.
I look at Ohio State and their interim coach and their team, and they've gotten hot. I believe they beat Illinois in the last few games.
Yeah.
Beat Purdue. So now you look and go, okay, they beat the 2 top nationally ranked teams out of the conference, the Big Ten. Why couldn't they go right through Illinois and go through? Then they'd probably go through Nebraska again, go to the final, play Purdue potentially if Purdue's going in there as another match. So I look at Nebraska, Ohio State, and then when I go back to Northwestern, I go to these 3 because they beat Purdue, and I'm using that as a metric. Beating somebody who's really hard to beat on all angles of the court. And they found a way to stop Edey. And I think Northwestern, I saved them for last, because if any of those 3 teams have had a chance at stopping Edey and causing a problem for Purdue, they beat them once. And trust me, you talk about nail biter. We went to OT in the second game, the second time we played them. And there's a lot of folks that say there were some questionable calls getting into that OT. And I'm a big fan. And I'll say I was kind of like, I don't know about this game. And if we play them a third time, that's trouble. And so what I'll say, my prediction for the Big Ten, long short here, is that I think Purdue plays Northwestern in this semi, and I think Western takes Purdue. And this is hard for me to say, but I think it could happen as Northwestern with Boo Buie outdoes Purdue, goes to play Ohio State in the final. And I think Ohio State wins. And I think Ohio State makes it into the tournament. I think they can do it off, I think they can do it off 3 wins because they're starting all the way. If they beat Iowa, Illinois, Nebraska, they probably get in. I think they're hungry enough.
Momentum up and to the right.
They play Northwestern, they make the tournament. I think that interim coach, something's going on there. When they beat Purdue, I watched a team that was so hungry. I thought, man, these guys are dangerous. That's my take. I know, again, most folks might say that sounds crazy, but hey, that's what this is. That's what happens. Right. And unfortunately, I'd like to see Purdue get there, but long circle, I think that loss Purdue takes Northwestern, sends them into the thorn in their side, and they end up going hot into the tournament. And I'll leave that for another time, but I'll go back to you.
I think that's what you want after hearing how last year went and your outlook on conference championship. I think you're subconsciously rooting against Purdue in this Big Ten tournament so that they can get a couple extra days of rest. That would be awesome to see. I mean, Ohio State's 10 in the conference, right? So for them to go and beat Iowa at 7, Illinois at 2, and then Nebraska it'd be 3, and then go beat Northwestern in the championship. That's a fun tournament, right? Yeah. And that makes Ohio State a dangerous team going into March. Now, to your point, are they exhausted at the end of that? Yeah, probably. Oh, yeah. Especially if they're, depending on what seed they end up being. Not that it's a Purdue versus FDU situation, but if they play someone, middle of the road, equal caliber, who maybe had a couple days rest in their conference tournament, a good team that didn't go as far, and Ohio State gets that credit because they just went on this run, they could be in for a tough March. But again, I think that you're smart to look at those 3 losses, right? And it would have been a bit of a sham if you were like, Purdue's going to run away with this whole thing, because it really does. Now, they're not just, the offense doesn't just run through Edey, right. But if you can shut him down, I mean, he looks like a man amongst boys, and these are tall, big guys that he's playing against. But if you can shut him down, you're giving yourself a fighting shot against Purdue.
Well, when you watch Nebraska, the way they beat us, I use that as the metric. I mean, their 3-point percentage, you go back and look, it's probably like 60%. I mean, it was insane that they were hitting threes that were like Curry out there. I think that's more of I think they're a great team, but I think that's a little bit more of a hot and cold team. I've seen Purdue like that in the past. You don't always find success. It's kind of a little bit lucky sometimes, depending on the atmosphere. I look at Illinois Northwestern as much more concrete, solid teams. But when you get guys coming through that second round, I'm looking in the bracket, Ohio State comes out hot and they play an Illinois team that just lost to Purdue and is sort of questioning some of their things that Ohio State's coming in mentally going, well, we already beat these guys. We already beat Purdue. We can do it again. I think they're hungry enough. On the other side, and a team I haven't talked about, Michigan State, and they have some solid players. If we've learned anything, if Izzo's in any kind of tournament, whether it's conference or March Madness, I'm always thinking they're going to do something. But obviously, I think they're going to beat Minnesota and go to play. If we're talking breaking this down, go to play Purdue. I think the way Purdue beat them, what Izzo said about Purdue being the best team in the country, I think they already mentally sold themselves on that they're gonna probably beat us again out of the quarterfinal. But Wisconsin's in there, and I think you get Maryland beating Rutgers, playing Wisconsin, and I think you get Wisconsin playing Northwestern. Now that's one thing I kind of just said. Northwestern will play Purdue and go to the final, but you can't shut out Hepburn and Storr. And I'm gonna go to you on Storr for a second, but you can't count those guys out. I think if this will be my last prediction on it because I already kind of gave my official, but
absolutely.
I'll just go into it. If Wisconsin beats Northwestern, for those kind of going through that bracket, looking at it, Wisconsin's another team just like Northwestern that I would say they could beat Purdue because they've been right there. And I think they pose a challenge mentally to Purdue to beat them again. It's like you guys going back against Marquette. There's this sort of like, we've gotten so close. So you could see on that part of the bracket, either Wisconsin or Northwestern getting in there and playing Ohio State. So I'll leave that kind of open-ended to see, but I still think Ohio State runs with this one. I really do.
Well, here's what Purdue needs to do if Wisco is actually who they end up facing. And for anyone who follows the Better Off, any social media account, you saw my rant yesterday on Sunday. I had Purdue -9. They're up 13 with 30 seconds left. They take a self-imposed intentional shot clock violation, which honestly I hate. I just you had a minute left in the game. Work for a shot. Sure, don't shoot the three, but run a play, do something, just dribbling it out. And then what happens, right? Wisco comes back, drains a three that hits every which side of the rim before dropping in. And then what's 22's name? I'll never forget his number.
This is Sear, but he's a bench player. I don't even know. I went to look him up. I don't even have him. He hasn't played a game all season.
This guy gets 30 seconds of playing time. Purdue up 10, in my eyes, covering. This is great. Dribbles up the ball lackadaisically, takes his eyes off the defender like he was playing, I don't know what, PAL league, and Wisco snags it from him on Purdue's home court and yams it. So now Wisco loses by 8. Like I said, I texted you right away. They should have shot the three. The fact that they went and dribbled it out, I didn't catch it enough. You were mad about bad etiquette on Wisco. I'm mad on 22 for not playing it out. You don't get playing time. You're on the court. This is your 30-second. Now you get this highlight.
It was senior day too. And it was senior.
It's wild.
That's this moment. Yeah.
It's crazy to me.
But Tommy, how about this?
But if I'm your coach, if I'm Purdue's coach, and I've got Wisconsin coming up, I'm taking that play. I'm taking the bad etiquette headline, which I don't actually agree with, right? I believe that that's on Purdue's 22. Credit to Wisco to playing for the whistle. But that's bulletin board material. That is top bang right there. These guys disrespected us on our home court. We were nice, showing a little Midwestern courtesy here, a little hospitality. We're going to not even play the last minute. We're going to give you an intentional turnover. You hit the three, dribble up, you got no shot in winning, and this is what they do. On senior night, on our home court, steal the ball, yam it for no reason, and that for me is bulletin board material. So I'll tell you right now, that was a 9-point spread. If Purdue versus Wisconsin comes up at anything 9 or under,
You're,
I am all over Purdue. I'm all over
I
Purdue
like it. I like
jumping
it.
up because
Yep.
they needed to take that. They need to take that as disrespect. If they
Yeah.
don't, they're going to end up with a similar situation as last year. You got to find whatever you can. You got to motivation for top teams is tough to come by. You can't always just rely on, hey, we've got a target on our back. You find the motivation. You're Dan Hurley with a thorn in your side. We didn't win the regular season last year. We didn't win the conference tournament. That's the
Right.
thorn in our side. That's what we want. Everyone's coming after us. Go and get it. So that's
I mean,
my personal opinion. If Purdue faces Wisco again, they need to look at that play, take it as disrespectful, and keep their starters in from beginning to end and play absolutely balls to the wall. That's what I would do. As a player, as a coach, that's where I'm going.
but Tommy, who even makes that decision when this is a question for you, because I believe it was Lance Jones, 55, that was coming up with, you're right, it was like a minute. So that maybe Wisconsin took it as disrespect, like, oh, you're going to call this game. You think we're not
that's
even
fair.
playing. So that could have, maybe they got mad and thought, don't do that to us. We're still in this. And the second part is, who makes the call? Did Coach Painter? I didn't see it, so I don't know. And I don't know who is players. Did they decide that? Now it's senior night. Maybe they were trying to have some etiquette, the players themselves, but Jones came up and he was the one, and I was shocked because I've never seen Purdue once in 10 years do something like that. It just seemed a little odd to me too. And then the shot clock violation, I thought, it's not like there's 2 seconds left, and it's like a very normal etiquette thing.
Yeah.
But I'm wondering, was Painter on the sideline doing some kind of, I didn't see it, but does he make that motion? Hey, don't shoot the ball. Or did the players think, oh, I'm just not going to shoot the ball and make this call myself? Because I don't know if maybe Painter brought him in the locker room and, to your point, and said, we don't do that. Why did you do that? Because that opened us up. This was an odd scenario. Maybe they had a whole talk in the behind the scenes. It didn't come up in the news that I read, but who knows? Maybe that wasn't.
Wait, sorry. Are you saying that Painter did
No,
go
I'm
in and say
saying
we don't do that? Take the shot. You're talking about the shot clock violation, right?
yes. Well, no, I'm saying did he tell Lance Jones to make that
That
decision?
has to come from the side. It has to come
It
from the
does,
side.
right?
Kill
Because
all
the
the
player
clock.
won't just come up and say, I'm just gonna decide with a minute to go. So, but if he did, my thought would be then, was it unspoken that then in the locker room, maybe there was a discussion like, hey, we're not gonna do that again. Like, I don't
You
know
would
what that
hope.
was. Like,
You
who
would
knows
hope.
how this played out?
It's so I can't imagine a player making that decision on his own.
Right.
Now, was it after that play? It was after that play because of the shot clock violation. So turnover, clock stops, and they took out all the starters, right? Was it after that shot clock violation?
Yes, yes.
So
Then everyone, yeah.
now that I'm replaying it, it had to have come from the coach. Maybe he was expecting him to foul, and if they don't foul, then you're getting as much time off the clock as you can. I don't remember what the timeouts were, but it gives you that opportunity to get your seniors off the floor and give them, or your starters and seniors off the floor,
Oh,
and give them that
and it's senior
ovation.
night and it's their last home game. So maybe that was the call, to your point. Let's get our guys in. It's
Right, because if they throw it up or they run a play and they can't stop the clock, again, I don't remember how many timeouts they had.
Yeah.
Then you miss that opportunity, right?
And
To
they
give
cleared
that
the
to.
bench at that point. To your point, it's exactly what they were thinking.
But it just comes down to you're getting 30 seconds of playing time. You're not seeing the floor a lot this year, and you decide to dribble it up and just you're
He's
asleep
going to
at
see
the
this and he's going to
wheel.
be feeling it even worse. He's going to know.
You can tell. So
Yeah.
I don't remember his name. 22 on Purdue, public enemy #1 on my list. But you can tell that he was bummed out that that's how it went down. Like he inbounded the
Yeah.
ball after, and he hung his head the whole time. That doesn't do me any good because I still lost 2 units on it. But I think that that's bulletin board material if you get a Purdue Wisco rematch somewhere in here for sure. Love the Ohio State call, though. I'm going to take a look at the odds for that. Anyone who's fighting for their life, I really do believe is, they're dangerous. They're the dangerous teams to look out for in these conference tournaments. Because to your point, and to my point earlier, I really do believe that Purdue, Houston, UConn have separated themselves so much from the field at this point that it really is, they're locked in to 1 seeds in the tournament, no matter what. Again, I think that they'll each win a game or 2 going into their conference tournaments, but that's exciting, man. I mean, I'm excited to watch Big Ten. It's really tough, and you had said this before, it's really tough to keep up with all of college basketball as a whole, right? To really know the ins and outs of every team is damn near impossible unless your job is literally to just watch the entire, watch all of college basketball. But even then, you're usually zoned in on 1 conference, maybe 2. So I'm excited to get into it. That should be a fun tournament to watch because Purdue has shown that there's chinks in the armor. It'll be interesting.
There's just more mental. I mean, everybody knows that it's a mental game for those guys at that point. It's like, I think any athlete that wins consistently and hasn't experienced a loss like that, you could say it both ways. You could say they learn from it and they go in stronger. But there's an odd thing with some of these teams and players where when you lose the big games, it's like the guy, it's like 22 coming up the court. When he came back up, he was probably more susceptible to losing the ball again. You watch, this is so random, but I watched the Masters a couple of years ago. Sheffield won, and he missed that putt once,
Scheffler?
Twice, yeah, and then a third time. Well, he made it on the 3rd time, and I think Nance or somebody was given the commentary, and I was starting to shake as he missed it the 2nd time, knowing how nerve-wracking, because then you really your chances are going up worse because it's like this thing. We've all been there. You're taking a test or something and you start getting questions wrong and you start questioning everything. I think that it goes for Purdue. They've had this odd tournament history for whatever reason. They've seemingly lost the worst games in history beyond just last year. I'll say this about Purdue. They've been ranked, they always have, they're the first #1 team to ever lose to whatever. Like, it's this odd stuff. And you start going, if it keeps racking up, does that start to work against them at some point? I will say this is the best team. Glenn Robinson, Joe Barry Carroll, all the greats, Rick Mount. This is probably the best team that's ever been assembled at Purdue in the last 100 years or however long basketball's even been around. This is it. I think the only thing that stands in the way of the physicality and how good they are is the mental. I know that was, kind of a whole different route as we're talking here about the Big Ten, but I'll just say for the tournament, I think if they can get around that, like they did in Hawaii earlier in the year, like they've done all season, only with 3 losses, I think they go in and they can win the whole title. They're just as much as good as anybody else, but the mental thing, I don't know. I can't, I can only hope that they just put it aside.
I think you got to take, for them, I think that all goes to the sidelines after just 1 win. And it doesn't matter what crappy team they're playing, as long as they can overcome their first round in the tournament, I think the butterflies go away and that mental aspect becomes obsolete. They remind themselves that they can win in March and that they are a top 3 team in this country. And then get ready for a fight, right? Because that's what it is. It doesn't get any easier as you get deeper into March. That's for sure.
But they need that confidence.
Big Ten's going to be fun to watch.
Yeah. I think, Tommy, I'll say that on the tournament. And then I want to hear on your conference, because I need to hear what you think, because now you got me reeling off it. But I will say, if Purdue can get through that first game, and if they get through it big, like 40-point win and just put this aside, whether they're a 1 or 2, I think they'll be a 1. But if they play a 16 and it's just a beat down, I think that is enough for them to put away the naysayers and themselves to put it away, which is most important. And go, we're locked. Like, we are good. We're ready to go. Now, it sounds funny to say you got to beat a 16 seed team to do that, but it's 2024. Nobody's safe. And it's not just Purdue. I mean, look at Arizona and the other teams last year. It's a crazy tournament. So you're right. You get that 1 win and you roll from there. And I think Purdue's going to get hot if they do. And I think that's going to change the brackets up this year, because a lot of people who don't hear this, they're going to go, oh no, Purdue's done. They're not that good anymore. It's all they lost to a 64. I'm only putting them into the 32 or something. I think they're going to be. It's going to be a different year. But yeah, tell me how you're feeling in your world and what your take is.
Dude, I'm feeling good, and it's a dangerous spot to be because you're just setting yourself up for heartbreak, right? Like, I think going into last year, not winning the regular season, not winning the Big East tournament, means that every win you get in March is house money. And getting as far as we did, you get to the Final Four, and you're kind of like, all right, we got our Final Four team. Then you win the Natty, and it's all just gravy on top. You know what I mean? So this year, different because you come in again, new team. I think we were preseason ranked maybe close to like 6 or 7. So it wasn't from beginning to end, we're a number 1 team in the country, top 3 team in the country. We earned that ranking. We've earned to stay up there. And we've had some tough wins along the way. But going into this season and this March Madness tournament, it does feel like we have more to lose because all you hear about is that since, what was it, the last Gators team that was potentially
2006,
good enough.
maybe.
06, 07, exactly.
Yeah.
06, 07. We've since then, no one's really been on track to repeat, and we are. And I hate hearing stuff like that. Now, maybe it's the pessimist in me, but I'd rather be an underdog coming up as opposed to the favorite who has to live up to that expectation. Now,
Sure.
with that said, I watch a game like this Providence game that we just had to finish out the regular season was one that I wasn't necessarily worried about, but I thought was going to be a much closer fight than it was.
Right.
Their forward, Oduro, I think is his last name, is just he's a bigger athlete. He's a better athlete than Klingon is. And they got off to a hot start. So I'm sitting there going, all right, we're in for a battle. And cream rises to the top. Talent rises to the top this time of the year. And you can't take your foot off the gas. Again, not to quote Dan Hurley, but Hurley's always talking about foot stays on the gas. Foot stays on the gas. They're relentless. And it doesn't matter how far they're down early. It doesn't matter how far they're down late. They're not going to stop coming at you because they never believe that they're out of it. And that confidence is something that you need come March Madness time for sure. So in the Big East, I've said, and again, maybe this is me trying to set myself up for the mental approach that I want going into the national tournament. If we lose in this tournament, I'm not going to be upset. Yes, it would suck. Would it be sweeter to win this and the national again and then take regular season, conference tournament, and the natty? Yeah, absolutely. Sign me up for that. But if we do lose, does that mean that I'm going to be down on my team come March when this tournament starts? Absolutely not. Now, with that said, we should beat. So we're going to play. I'm looking at the bracket now. We've got the winner of Butler Xavier. We should handle whoever comes out of that game. Tough teams, Big East games. Am I expecting that? Absolutely. But I'm telling you right now that we've got so many friggin' options that I just have faith that if a coach decides we're going to shut down Klingon, we're taking away the paint, fine. We've got Caravan, Spencer, Newton, Castle, Diarra coming off the bench, all guys who can hit from the arc. Phenomenal. We'll go there. You want to guard 3 points? Fine. We'll dominate you with our big guy down low. Now, there are 2 teams that make me nervous that I don't want to see. One is Marquette, and that's from a straight athleticism standpoint, especially I'm forgetting the name. Cam, someone, one of their point guard. Their point guard's out, wasn't in the last game. They're expecting him back for the tournament, and they're a different team with him for sure. Shaka knows how to win, right? So I love the coaches in the Big East right now. It's back minus Syracuse. I really wish Syracuse was still with us. But the Big East feels nostalgically like the Big East right now, which is a lot of fun, right? When you've got hatred for a coach or you're nervous about a team just because of the coach, right? That's classic Big East stuff. So Marquette makes me nervous, and Creighton should always make me nervous. Doug McDermott has this team convinced that they can win any game at any point, and he's a phenomenal coach. And it's something like, I think they've been in the Big East for 8 years, 8 seasons, something like that. I heard this said on a podcast that McDermott was on about a week or two ago. They've been in the Big East for like 8 seasons, and they've made the semis or the finals in the Big East tournament 6 of those 8. These guys know how to win. This is Creighton we're talking about. We're not talking about a blue blood. We're not talking about Georgetown, Villanova, right? It's Creighton, but they're dangerous. They're
Well,
dangerous.
they just beat Houston, right?
Yeah.
Or no, yeah.
No, did they?
Oh.
Houston?
No, who did they? Creighton just was it you guys? No, it was you.
Oh, they beat us. No, wait, let me put no, wait, let me.
Houston. No, it was you.
They
You're right. It was
smoked. They smoked us. They smoked us on their home.
smoking you. You guys tightened it up pretty close. It seemed like, and then they kind of ran it up a little. But
that was the week we lost the number 1 seed.
That's what it was.
We went from 1 to 3. Purdue had just beat someone in a tighter game. Again, you and I were texting that weekend. That was the week we fell from 1 to 3. Whatever, all irrelevant. Creighton scares me. Creighton's a team that can win any game at any moment. They're not afraid of the big stage. And credit to Doug McDermott for having them with that mindset. Lucky for us, we don't have to see either Creighton or Marquette until the finals. And
okay, so it would be final.
It would be finals in this in the conference tourney. And if you get this team, my team, this Husky team into the finals, I'll take us 10 times out of 10. Because then it's tasting. You're there. The trophy's at the fucking end, at the end of it. You know what I mean?
I mean, I would rather, if I'm in your shoes, I like UConn over Creighton. If what you're telling me, because I don't have the bracket up. If they play in the final, I like UConn. I get weary to your point, and I like what you're saying. If Marquette and they have the key player back comes in, I don't know why it's blanking both of us, but he's back and they're hot and the coaching's good. And now they've lost twice, correct? So they come in. It's that odd third game.
Tough to beat a team 3 times.
Can you beat a team 3 times? And I think there's a sort of angry, we're going to kick your butt to Creighton, and I think they could, and I think they will if they play Creighton. I agree with you there. I think UConn comes out on top and gets regular season and tournament. I think you're happy. I think the Marquette game, maybe you get what you want. You get that nail biter game. The chicken cutlets are going to be burning, and you're gonna miss the. I don't know. And then you get the thorn in the side though. If Marquette ends up winning that, and you guys probably go into either way. If you make that final, there's no doubt you're still going to hold the 1 seed at that point. I think same with Purdue if they're in the final. I don't know how much you lose. Well, we got into the whole thing on whether these conference titles really, really matter. So,
right, and I agree. I mean, from a fan's perspective, you got to love it. From a strategy standpoint, it is what it is. I do think that Dan Hurley is pushing this team to win the conference. And again, just watching us, unless it's an anomaly night where we're really not shooting from the arc well, and whatever team is able to shut down Klingon, I can't see us losing to Butler or Xavier. I can't see us then losing to whoever the winner of Seton Hall St. John's is. St. John's had a tough one against Georgetown this past week. Like, that was on their home court. I was all over St. John's for this game, and they made it interesting. It should have never been interesting. So, Seton Hall on a neutral site, we should handle Seton Hall from a talent perspective. For whatever reason, I don't know. Maybe I've been to, I think the last game I went in person where it was Seton Hall versus UConn, Seton Hall won. It makes me nervous, but at this point right now, like
flashbacks.
Yeah, right. Like I'm living against different teams. The only teams that I can see giving us a fight, I'm going to knock on wood because nothing worse than being a jinx, is Creighton and Marquette can give us a real run for our money in this tournament. But
Well,
again, it's going to happen in the championship.
Yeah, that's the scary part is this is why I go back to the tournament. You've got teams that aren't number one seed favorites, and they're fighting for the big win.
Right.
They're fighting for placement, and you get a little bit more hunger there than you have something to lose mentality. Now, that's just my take. I'm not playing on those teams. I'm not coaching those teams. They probably have a different vision on that or what that looks like or how they drive the momentum and what they're doing. But that's just as a fan, what I see. And I think what we all feel. Hey, there won't be any court storming in neutral sites, right? That won't even be I hope that's not a problem.
We didn't even get, I wish that I feel like that headline has come and gone.
Yeah. Well, maybe because we're kind of past, like, I think at neutral sites, I don't see how you could get enough people or you like victories.
Just better security, I feel like.
You don't get, I've never seen it in a tournament, but.
Right. Which leads me to, and I did want to touch on this. It's funny. I actually meant to touch on the rundown. It was supposed to happen a little earlier.
Yeah, I had
without getting in depth.
Sure.
Again, let's wrap up the Big East. I fully believe UConn can win. I think UConn should take, if UConn loses to anyone before the championship, it would be an absolute upset. And then if we are playing Creighton or Marquette in the championship game, it's going to be a tight game. It's going to be a tight game. If you end up with the spreads that we've been seeing where it's like UConn -9, something like that, 8 to 10, I would bet the dog. If UConn's giving up 8-9 points, Marquette and Creighton are not afraid of my Huskies. That much I know. And that's a dangerous team to play against. Now, will they come out with the overall W? I don't know. But you want to give these guys some points from a bettor's perspective in a Big East championship game. I'm taking the dog. If you're going to give 8-9 points to Creighton or Marquette, I think that's the way to do it from a betting perspective. Now, moving on from the Big East to court storming, and I don't want to touch on it for long, but I would love to know how you feel. Pro, against, what do you think?
Well, again, I'll go back to the 3 losses we had. I shut the TV off now. Usually I want to hear what the other coach is going to say. I just shut it off now before the end of the game because I already know that it's going to be more of a heartbreak to watch. This is from a fan perspective, not from the player perspective in the injury.
Right.
Not being even at the game. There's a couple sides of this. There's watching on TV, there's being at a game, and there's being the player. From watching, if your team's losing and you're number 1 and you know you're top 5 now, if you're even top 10 now, this is the problem. I think your team's going to get court stormed on if you're in a away game. And I had to watch Purdue in all 3 away games this season. And I think there was some crazy stat that like 10 times it happened last year. It was ridiculous. I'll just leave it at this to not go too in depth and forget, because if we go in depth on player injuries, it's all Clark in the women's NCAA. This whole thing is she got hit. I think it was Filipowski or something from Duke.
Yeah, flip from Duke.
Yeah, so it gets they get heightened when it's like someone important. But I think when you look at if we don't go too deep into this and you just look at it from what should it really be? What did it used to be? It's a huge upset. It's the underdog of all time versus the number 1 team. This is like unprecedented to the point that it's like in the movies. You have to go out and do this thing. It makes it so unique and you don't see it very often. When you see it every game, where every other game, I think everyone could agree with this. It starts to become, this is so overdone. It doesn't mean anything anymore. And it takes away all the glory of when that time should come in football, basketball, anything, but now basketball is just happening everywhere. I'm curious to hear your take, but I will end on, I don't think it should be banned, but I think that they should come up. I don't know how, but they need to come up with some way to guard it and figure it out. But banning it all together takes away what I think is an old time classic of college basketball that makes it interesting. I don't want to see the fans being taken out because that's what it's all about. That's what do you have if you don't have people there, like in the game, part of the game? I mean, I don't know. I agree
with you. I actually think we're seeing eye to eye on this. I remember when I was at UConn, we beat Texas. I forget where we were in the standings. We were top 25. It was a 2010 season, so the year before we ended up winning the Natty, but we were a good team. Texas was number 1 at that time. And I remember talking to my boy next to me and my boy Dan DeChico, like, are we storming the court? We got there early. We were like 8 rows back from the floor. We were like, no, it's not worth it. We're a good team. We're a good team. You can't, if you're top 25, you can't be storming the court when you beat a number 1. It's similar. You know what it reminds me of? Barry Sanders never celebrated a touchdown. He never had a touchdown celebration, and it was because he believed in act like you've been there before. I was supposed to score that touchdown, so why am I going to celebrate? Miss Harlow, how are you? What do you have there?
We're talking court storming, Harlow.
Now, in a few years, when Harlow's at college,
she'll be storming the court.
If USC wins a big game, then then you should definitely storm the court.
Are you going to storm the court when you're at USC? Right. Do you want to go turn that on? Yeah. Daddy will finish here and then I'll come find you? Yeah. Okay, I'll be right behind you.
My God. Yo, she is so cute. She looks, is it me or does she look just like Kelly?
I think she looks like a mini Kelly, and Bo is starting to look like me. It's hilarious, man.
So I heard a crazy thing because everyone was saying Jordan, my daughter, looks just like Tommy. They look just like you.
One will look like one, and then the other will look like the other person.
Well, so here's the craze. So someone told me that babies look like their fathers from like evolution, so that fathers don't leave.
Oh, no way.
Isn't that wild?
That's weird. I did not know that was a thing.
It honestly got me hooked on the book. Babe, what's that book called? Sapiens? I think it's called Sapiens.
Oh yeah, I've heard of this. It's
cool. I bought the book right away. Amazon. I got it like later that night. But it's little things like that. So apparently the look like their fathers. That's the fathers don't
start doing Joe Rogan style stuff here.
They already have the connection to their mothers. What the hell were we talking about? Oh, court storming. I think that it needs to be fewer and far between. Yeah, you need to be an unranked team, like a unranked team, beating a top team and storm the court. If you have a number 9 Duke beating a number 2 UNC, that's not worthy of a court storming. You need to have a little higher expectation for your team, because the whole idea of court storming is that it's an unexpected win, right? It's a true upset. And if you give that other team credit, right? If you're 10, right, and you beat a number 1 on your home court, you need to that was the expectation coming in. That's my opinion. I don't think they should ban it. Wake Forest was favored in that Duke game, if I remember correctly. They were like 2.5 point favorites. If you're a favorite, you certainly should not be storming the court. But I do think it comes down to, again, putting myself back into a college student perspective. You're looking for any reason to party a little bit harder. You want to have so what? So
generation thing, is it changed because there's a different generation of folks that are seeing this a little bit differently and they're taking it to another level? Does it also have other areas of this as you go back in time where people, and I'm not talking about like a respect thing or anything, but from party atmosphere, social media, the TikToks, that people want to make it amp up. We didn't have as much of that. Did people not think as much about how crazy this is if we run on the court? Maybe people were like, why do we need to go on the court? Who cares? But now it's like, oh, I want to be part of something big and I want to show everybody that I was there.
I think that's the nail on the head, dude. That really is the nail on the head. We're just living in a stream your life time.
Look at how I was at that game, and when I went, this court storm happened. It was so cool. And
if you watch,
have that.
Watch that Caitlin Clark, the Iowa versus Ohio State game. And I think it was Seth Greenberg talking about this on ESPN. But she may play linebacker for Ohio State. But that girl who bodied Caitlin Clark is running out on the court like this with her phone. She's not paying attention to anything. Now, I don't want to be an old man yelling at clouds, yelling at kids on their phones when I'm on my phone all the damn time. But like,
Right.
it's just it's an absolute example of what she was looking for. She probably had no clue what was actually happening, how
Right.
intense, how big the moment actually was. And again, Iowa wasn't even a top team. You beat Caitlin Clark. Everyone knows Iowa because of Caitlin Clark, but
Right.
you can't get rid of it. I do think that there needs to be you can't have you can't have players in the fans' way. That Wake Forest Duke game, Wake Forest fans were on the court with less than a second left. The buzzer hadn't even gone yet. And
maybe that's the
these
answer.
volunteer geriatric security guards sitting there trying to stop. Forget that. I'm not going to try and stop anyone. Like you can't overpower these kids. So you figure it out. You get some real security in there. Court storming needs to stay, though. It is a staple of college basketball. And if you are lucky enough to be on a team that is crappy enough to beat a team that is good enough to warrant a court storming, then more power to you. But just because you're a good basketball team and you beat a great basketball team, in my opinion, doesn't give you the authority to storm the court.
How about this? Would this even count? I don't know, but what if because you say, oh, well, arrest someone if they run out before you regulate it, and you get 50,000 or whatever, 14,000 people coming out. Well, that's hard to say that's going to work. So what if they did something ridiculous, like saying, if it's your home court and one person comes out before the players and coaches have actually left, you forfeit, you lose, we take away, we give it to the other team. And then every person in the stands is going, I can't be that person. And they make this like on the fans, like you cannot, there is an exact time and you have to wait no matter how long it is until this, or there's someone that gives a signal that it's safe, that people can come out. I don't know, but there's got to be some kind of like ramification where people know, oh, we can't do that because we don't want to be that person.
Well, I agree with that. There needs to be some sort of consequence. Now, it can't be a forfeit, in my opinion. You can't take the game out of someone's hands because you don't know who's doing what.
Right. Yeah. Well, yeah, there you go. Yeah. Someone would come and mess with that every time. Yeah.
Again, like I think it was Jay Billis was talking about, you hand out some fines. If you run on the court, fine. But we're sealing off the court, and anyone who's on the court is getting a fine. And you're doing it that way. That's fair. I like Greenberg's idea. Greenberg's idea was better, where he was saying, you set a shot clock, you give the other team time to get off. So whether that's 30 seconds, a minute, get off the floor, you play the alma mater song, and the players go over to the crowd. But for that, you need legitimate security. You need big dudes standing in front of that section, ready to body anyone that comes out prior to that. And then if you want to party afterwards, absolutely. Storm the court, go ahead and do it. But running onto the court with time still left on the clock is a bit nonsense. Now, I will say that I did say that Caitlin Clark flopped on that Ohio State fan play. It looked a bit over the top, just, for me. And Flip, I do believe, I think he was more in the right, but he did. It looked like he maybe tried to trip a fan. Now, again, he's supposed to be on the court. The fan isn't supposed to be on the court, to Jay Billis's point. So it's, I can see either way. I hope they don't get rid of it. That's hands down. I hope they don't get rid of it, but they've got to figure out a way to make it safe. And that's what we'll say about that. Let's go through. We won't even touch on SEC or ACC or any of these conferences. I'm curious because I think Houston in the Big 12 is a sleeper come March Madness. And we don't have to get too in depth to it. I know you're a Big 10 guy. I'm a Big East guy. So we're speaking a little bit out of our rear ends here when it comes to the Big 12. You got to give Houston credit for changing conferences and absolutely running the show in the Big 12. They're the real deal. I haven't looked at the odds. I should. Maybe it's just because you and I talk. I feel like Purdue and UConn are getting a lot of the headlines, but Houston's got the number one next to their name. So in my eyes, they should be the favorite to win this national championship. I I wouldn't be surprised. That might be a bet that you got to look at. Iowa State just lost. Baylor is halfway decent, right? Kansas just lost their big guy a week ago in the tournament. I don't see anyone able to stop them.
They just said, I don't know if it's Jay or who put it, but they said, oh, don't be surprised if Arizona's cutting the nets down in April. And then they just lost to USC or something. And I was like, that was a little bit off. But I think when you get to Houston, I think I fear that there's not anybody. I say fear because we have other teams that we have in there. I don't think there's anybody that can beat them when they're hot, and they're hot right now.
Right.
And I agree with you. I think they're a clear path to the 4 when we see how this shakes out with the seeding, but I think there's a clear path there. And then you get maybe some tight games with some real competition for them. I wouldn't have said this in the beginning of the season, but after seeing them play in some tight matchups, I mean, I can say the same for Purdue or UConn, but there's something about Houston right now. And even being a Purdue fan, I see Houston going all the way too. I can feel it. I just sense it from their play. And I think other folks are feeling that way, but who knows? I mean, you got to see what some of those matchups look like. I like Kentucky. I like Tennessee. I think Tennessee's real hot. I know they've had some close ones here, but I think they've come up. They were the 4th. I don't know if they've still held in that spot.
I think they dropped because I think UNC because the 4, 5, 6 lose. I think UNC jumped to 4 because they got the win against Duke in Cameron.
And that's probably, yeah. I mean, they're up there, and you got to look at some of these teams from the experience factor too. They can make a deep run, and just because, and they've been there before, and the coaching and the they know how to handle it. So I think there's the top 3. There's the clear top 3, and then there's your top 10. And I think it's anybody's field at that point. But Houston, man, I'm pro Purdue, and you got UConn. If I'm looking at the 3 and I'm just taking all bias aside, I like Houston for this thing.
I'm scared of Houston. I think it's a fear of the unknown, right? Because I haven't watched them as much as I've watched Purdue a bunch, because I know you and I are going to chat, and because I know Zach Edey versus Klingon is a matchup that I want to see. I hope to God we get a UConn versus Purdue. If that happens, you and I are flying somewhere mid-country and we're watching together. Has to happen. But in the end, I feel like maybe we're both counting our chickens before they hatch, and Houston's going to be the one to sweep the rug out from underneath us and take home that natty. They're dangerous. There's nothing you can say. That win that they just had this past weekend, the end of the regular season, was absolutely dominant. And a team that can do that in a new conference, they have their bulletin board material, and it's working. And it's that people were saying that they weren't going to hang in the Big 12, and they took that and they shoved it right back in their face. They won that conference easy. So I'm going to watch the Big 12 tournament way closer than I would have.
Right.
If Houston was a 5, 6, 7 seed. You know what I mean?
Right. I'll throw one last one in there, Tommy. South Carolina. I've seen, I'm just thinking of some of the teams in the 25 that have some key players that I've seen make some moves. And we could do a whole nother one on once the seeding happens, maybe you and the team and some folks we get together.
We'll jump back on for sure.
Some favorites, but I'll tell you, there's a few, and South Carolina might be one of them, but there's some out there that I've watched and could say, oh, I see a run coming, and at least 8, Elite 8 or Final 4. And those are some of those ones you have to have picked where you just know, or you can see it coming, and they happen because they have those players that can make the run in the tournament. And and I'm sure we can pick a few of them out, but that's another one that I have. But yeah, you nailed it, top 3. And I think we both have that same fear that most others are going to have. So yeah.
So let me ask you right now, someone's telling you you're getting 1-to-1 odds, even money, that Purdue, Houston, or UConn win the national championship. 10 out of 10 times you're taking it, right?
I mean, one of those 3, yes.
It's them or the field.
Right now, out of those 3, based on what I've seen, yes. one of the three, 100%.
Yeah, I think I'm with you.
What about yourself? What do you think on that?
I think I'm with you. And again, I really do. I mean, I'm chomping at the bit for a Klingon versus Edey matchup. I like our arc shooters more. I think Edey wins that battle, which is why I think I want to see it, because we'll have to rely on our shooters to overcome that. But it just, again, I know it's not exactly a hot take, but these three teams have separated themselves from the rest of the pack throughout the year, and I want to see this national championship earn their way all the way through playing some good teams. So I really hope that this championship game is a 1v1 rank when it all comes to it.
Yeah, the last thing I'll say on it too, Tommy, and unfortunately, a lot of folks go to the hating on Purdue a little bit last year, the loss, and it's this big thing comes out of it. And at the end of the day, if I put aside, like you would maybe for UConn, just put it aside for a second and you say, what's the most fun part outside of your team making a run? If your team's out of it, you still watch it. You want to see good games.
Yes.
You don't and what makes a good game? You just don't want to see the 40-point slide. I like seeing good games, even if it's a 16 versus 1. I don't like seeing what I saw last year, but I want to see Purdue go deep, because you get some of those really good games where, like Purdue in the Elite Eight versus Virginia the other year, they lost. That was a phenomenal game. I'm in it for those kind of games. So my hope in this tournament, we all want to see our teams go far, but I just want to see some of those matchups and have one of those years that we've seen coming time and time again, where you get those really crazy games and you're just rooting for, those nail biter games. So I'm hoping for that. Obviously I want to see one of those three. If it's not Purdue, I would want to see one of the other two there, because I'm confident they can do it. So we'll see, but you're right. We're probably I don't know what your saying was. It's probably we'll count our chickens before they hatch. That's an age-old thing, but it's true.
We're a lot of farming going on here in Brooklyn.
Yet. I want Zach Edey and Smith. They were almost both injured in our last game versus Wisconsin. I want to see them make it healthy into the 64. That'd be the last thing we want to see. Knock on wood, is something happening there. So let's hope we get there. Count me in for talking March Madness at some point and really breaking it down once those brackets are out, because I know it'll be mayhem.
Yeah, brother. Let's log on again for after Selection Sunday. We'll have to look at maybe easiest path to the Final Four and just see where we're going to meet up. If we're going to meet up, in the end, you've got 4 different brackets and 3 teams who have separated themselves. So that means one of them is going to meet before the championship, if it all works out, right? And one of them is going to meet in the Final Four and won't get a chance to go and make the run at the trophy. And that'll be fun to really break down.
In Arizona in the Final Four, we'll have to watch that together. That's going to be our chance.
I'm going to try and get tickets.
Steve over here and talk about it. I'll be driving if I have to, man.
Even if it would just be, I can't wait. I'm so excited. Best time of year for basketball. Again, I'm way more of a college hoops head than I am an NBA guy. Love the Knicks. Glad they're doing great, but this is the time of year for me, and I'm so excited to watch some of these matchups. Any last words before we sign off?
Look out for Ohio State. I said it once. I hate to say it.
I'm a Purdue guy.
But just watch out for. I'll watch them lose in the first match to Iowa. But no, if they don't, watch out. I think they're a hidden one in that bracket in the 64. Purdue, I got faith that they'll get past that first game and get some momentum. But no, thanks for having me on. I hope I didn't take in too many different directions or throw some unpopular opinions out there. But
that's what I want.
Being on for the first time and getting to chat with you and get some of your takes on this too. So be happy to come back.
Chris, this is absolutely awesome. I appreciate you taking the time. We set out to do a 45-minute podcast. We are now 2 hours into the podcast, all tech difficulties aside. Please apologize to your wife for me. This is as much as my fault as anyone else's, but this is a great conversation. I can't wait to watch all this unfold. I can't wait to recap it with you. And hopefully you and I will be watching UConn Purdue Final Four or championship game next to each other. And
Yeah, if we really want to put our money where our
selflessly-
mouth is, let's book our tickets now to Arizona. How about that?
You gotta take that. See, that's remember what I said about bad juju? Can't do that. Can't do that.
There
We
you
gotta wait
go.
till we get
See,
there.
that'd be a little too far, but hey, if we're really serious, there you
All right,
go.
brother. I will talk to you later. Appreciate it. Everyone, thanks for signing in. I hope you stayed the whole time. There are some good nuggets in there. We are in for some good, I'll say great college hoops coming up this week, next week, for the rest of the month. As always, make sure you go to the BettorOff app to find your best lines on your favorite books. And we'll catch you next time. Let's catch some of these plays and have a damn good time doing it. All right.